Fresh air, longer days, a chance to reset. This season, let therapy be part of your spring cleaning. Clearing mental clutter, shaking off stuckness, and building something better. Grow Therapy helps you get there. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 15th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast with author Sarah F. Hathaway and co-host Chen Gibson, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Sarah F. Hathaway and Chen Gibson.
Hello, and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 491. We're just about to 500, and we got a super special guest today with us, my coach, Coach Asher. Hello, Asher.
Hello.
And also, as always, Chin's with us. Hey, Chin, what's up?
Chin's up, y'all.
Well, we just got absolutely annihilated by the intro music. So if we can't hear you, that's why. We're just absolutely taken back by that music there. So hopefully it wasn't that loud for the audience, and I'll try and figure that one out in the future. So I got sad news. My peach tree, sadly, has died. And the Texas wind finally took its last blow at it, and so there'll be no peaches this year. But the Lord is good. At the same time as it took down the peach tree, it was providing us with all these brand new shoots. So in 5 years, we'll have peaches.
I thought you were going to say it provides you with firewood.
No, it doesn't really, but it's Ragnar's favorite tree to chew on, for real, is that peach tree. So he's excited about that. Chickens are doing great. The new setup, I'm going to do a show on just the new setup because it is phenomenal. It's the best chicken build I've ever done. And so, I'm going to share that one pretty widely. It's a very cool setup, and they're laying like little crazy girls. So love that. New gardens just got finished. They look gorgeous.
They look great.
Yeah. So hopefully we're up against Texas, and we're going strong this year. So we're going to put shading up so that everything's nice protected from the insane sun here, which is a nightmare.
I don't want anybody to be fooled. You're really building a tiki hut. I saw pictures. I know what's going on down there.
We would need like a gazebo top for it, right? I've thought about it. It'd be a great space to work out in. I would love that.
For sure.
So, yeah. So that's what's going on in my end of the world. What you got going on, Chin?
Not much. Same old. Pollen's kicking in real well.
Oh, yes. So it always does.
Got all kinds of no burn fire warnings, so that's good, too. So it's exciting. And all that down wood from the hurricane.
Still the challenge, right?
Yeah. So.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Otherwise, life is going on.
He was in the area where Hurricane Helene was, and we were also there during Hurricane Helene, so it was a great time. And
so let's go
but they're
camping
still
in a
doing,
hurricane.
yeah. So they're still on cleanup mission. Mm-hmm. So, Coach, we brought you on today. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Tell the audience a little bit about yourself so they know, why would Sarah bring you on? And then we're going to show how this really relates to being prepared, the preparedness mindset, and how beneficial, just your body and your spirit is before you worry about guns and gear and garbage.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of a very long, winding story that got me to this point. I went to school, for college, and it took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to serve people in some way. Wasn't sure what that was going to look like. And, I happened upon a research project. It was a replication site for a study that had been conducted at UCLA. And, as an undergrad, I ran into this project, and to get course credit and to get a letter of recommendation for graduate school, I decided to join that project for a year. And, that was providing, intensive early treatment for children on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
And I figured I would do my 1-year stint and then move on with life.
Be done.
Yeah. And then that turned into an 18-and-a-half-year career working in a pediatric psychology clinic. And we treated, kids with autism, but we also treated every childhood behavioral disorder that you could possibly imagine. While I was doing that, I started training in Krav Maga. I didn't start training until I was 30. I always wanted to train in martial arts. I did the obligatory 6 months in Taekwondo, Hapkido.
Mm-hmm.
I moved on from that. I had a hard time, really seeing for myself how it would apply in the street so much.
Yep.
And so, it took, another 15, 20 years until I ran across Krav Maga. And I just happened to be watching TV one day, and I was flipping through the channels. This was when we had big box TV still.
All right.
And, I ended up on this channel, and it was, a making of Beyond Flux, with Charlize Theron. Never saw the movie, but I turned it on during a fight scene. And there was something different about that fight scene than anything I had ever seen in a movie or a television show.
Okay.
There was no flashiness. There was no art. It was just straight down to business, and it just looked brutal. And so I was curious what that was because I had never seen it. And so I watched the whole thing in hopes that they would say in the credits what she had been trained in. We didn't have smartphones. I couldn't just look it up. And so, when it got to the credits were so small, I had to put my face on the TV, and she was training multiple things.
Couldn't pause it?
No, couldn't pause it. She was training multiple things, and Krav Maga was one of them. I had heard of all the other ones, wasn't interested in those, said Krav Maga, and I had never heard of that. Mm-hmm. So I looked it up. And I was in class that weekend and have been there now for 20 years.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So, over the course of time, what I've realized is that, you first and foremost, you have to have a foundation of physical skills in order to protect yourself. But also just to be a healthy human being.
Right.
And it took me much longer to figure out that, breathing was super important. What I realized was that my coaches when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, they never talked about breathing. Mm-hmm. It was never discussed. Yep. Right. And so everybody's doing all of the physical activities that they do, mouth breathing, mouth open really fast. Right. And, come to find out that's a really bad idea. And we can get into that at some point. And it took, COVID happening for me to really realize the synergistic effect of meditation and breathing, combining the two of them together. I had engaged in meditation since I was 18. But, again, back then we didn't have smartphones. It was, I was reading books and trying to figure everything out, by reading books. Didn't have a coach. And so I kind of fumbled around in the dark for 15 years or so.
On what that really looks like, right?
Yeah,
I mean, just watch like the gurus on YouTube and go, "Oh yeah, that's how it's done."
Yeah, even then we didn't have YouTube.
Right.
We just got really computers. Mm-hmm. There wasn't even video conferencing. That was something that was way in the future.
Right.
It was just hard to even fathom that could happen. So I got into meditation because I wanted to be less of an asshole.
Yep.
Right? That's really what it came down to. I wanted to be a better human being. And so I was using those books, trying to understand it the best I could. And a lot of it just went way over my head. But what I did understand, I would attempt sitting on a cushion for various times, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever. And what I was noticing is that I would sit for however long, and then I would get off the cushion and walk into life. And it's as if I never meditated. I was still an asshole, same level asshole, nothing changed. And it was about 15 years later when I started really getting into some coaching with some people and, started to really figure out how to take the skills that you're learning on the cushion into everyday life. Mm-hmm. And it was then much later after that I got into breathing. In fact, I was listening to a podcast. It was Mark Devine's podcast, who was a Navy SEAL, and he's got an organization called, SEAL Fit and Unbeatable Mind. And what he does is he trains people, who are aspiring SEALs, that are preparing themselves for BUDS training.
Right.
And so he helps prepare them, through a variety of techniques. And one of the things he does, he has a weekend where it's basically a short BUDS, right? Mm-hmm. Where, you go to California, you're on the beach, you're getting in the water, and you're up for 3 days doing all kinds of physical activities that are terrible. I got involved in his organization, went to a conference that he did. It was really fantastic. Got a lot of stuff from his work, but on that podcast, he had a certain person named, Dr. Belisa Vranich, who is a psychologist. And, she got into breathing because she had some of her own issues. She started having panic attacks. Mm-hmm. Someone recommended a breathing class. So she did that. She had great benefit from it. So she started using those techniques with some of her clients, her psychology clients, her counseling clients. And, they started to have benefit from it.
Right.
And so on that podcast, she started to list all of, these issues that arise in human beings that would be considered dysfunctional breathing. Mm-hmm. So she had this long list, and I realized that I displayed all of them.
Right.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
And so that set me on a path to try to figure out how to fix those issues in myself. And when I did that, I received such great benefit from it that, I wanted to teach other people. I had already been teaching, meditation to the kids at Krav Maga that I was teaching. I was head of a special program at Krav Maga Houston. It's called the Master Program. It's for kids who want to earn a junior black belt in Krav Maga before they graduate high school.
Right.
So some of the kids start at 5 years old, and they get they're 18. They leave high school with a junior black belt.
And it's legit. Like the program. I've seen black belts, so to speak, in other disciplines, and you're like, really?
No,
this is earned.
These kids are really good, and what ends up happening almost invariably, part of the requirement is that in order to be selected to try to go for your junior black belt, you actually have to take an adult test. Like a level 1, level 2 test, whatever it is, whatever's appropriate for that particular age and skill level. And those tests are hard.
Right.
And, I think only one time, the kids that took the adult test didn't beat the adults. They always beat the adults. Mm-hmm. They always get high score. In fact, one of them got high score on her first 4 adult tests. Yeah. Right. Which really says a lot about, what they're learning in that program and the efforts that they put in.
Because it's mind and body. I was going to say, I've been training for like 25 years, and I could probably count on one hand the amount of times we've worked with like breath work, to regulate the system out. Right. Yeah. Besides like breathe in, breathe out when you punch. Yeah. That's it. And that's all that was really talked about. So I kind of went on the journey as far as like anger went. And, my friend Brian Duff, he struggles a lot with PTSD from being a medic ranger and things like that. And so for him to talk about his PTSD, I really started applying those principles to my anger and how to get a grip on that and be able to like go through a situation without, if you're in a survival situation, you cannot just go to freak out mode and not be able to cope with that. You have to be able to bring yourself back to a regulated place to be able to handle whatever comes. And you're just a nicer, more balanced human being as far as your capability of handle bumps in the road. They're going to be there.
Yeah.
So that's why I really was like, okay, there's something behind what it's about, and a lot of my self studies, you mirror the same information. So, how about like let's try to talk about kind of a scenario where somebody would be in. Maybe you're at Walmart, something like that, walking out of the Walmart. Somebody's there. Hey, you got a nail in your tire. Mm-hmm. You decide or don't decide, you have that confrontation to get out of the car or not. And how is this like skill really going to be able to help you through those moments, whether it's getting hit by Hurricane Helene, right? Or those personal moments that you have.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say about that is it's really best to have a regular practice that you're doing when times are good. Right. It's almost like, there's a lot of people who they don't ever pray until times are terrible,
right?
and then they start praying, right?
Yeah.
This is very much the same way. What you want to do is have a regular practice and have momentum of practice, so that when situations arise where there's
tell the statistics too about Houston, the number of people actually training, as far as like you're right next to the police station.
Yeah.
And you don't have them in their training.
No, police are very difficult to get to train.
Right.
And in fact, police trainers.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Police trainers will tell you that police officers are the most difficult to train, period. They just don't want to train, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Know someone in your life celebrating a birthday? They deserve to feel truly celebrated. That's what 1-800-Flowers has helped people do for 50 years, turning everyday gestures into meaningful moments of connection. And this April, during their 50th birthday celebration event, when you buy one bouquet, get a second bouquet 50% off. Celebrate more birthdays with our 50th birthday event all April long at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. Buy one bouquet, get a second bouquet 50% off at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
But what I was saying is, if you have a momentum of practice because you're practicing on a regular basis, daily basis, multiple times a week, whatever it is, you get momentum of practice. Mm-hmm. And so when something does arise where there's emotional reactivity, then that reactivity will probably not be as high as it normally would have been.
Right.
So it doesn't peak as high. It doesn't, and it metabolizes much faster. Right. And I'll share one practice that I love to do on a daily basis that I think has been a huge game changer for me. This came about because I felt like there were so many areas of my life where meditation and breathing had already helped me. And so I was kind of scrolling through, just trying to figure out, well, where's an area that I really need to focus? And it came about because I went to the gas station and I was paying at the pump, and I put all my information in, put the card in, put my information in, and it said, please see cashier on the screen on the pump. And I was like, right?
Yeah. Like, I don't want to go see cashier.
If I wanted to see that person, I would have walked in, right? So if you were there to witness it, you wouldn't have noticed that I was frustrated, but internally I had an outsized, a magnified, reactivity to that. Too much anger for the situation that was going on. And so that I started to target that. What are all the small little frustrations that we encounter throughout the day that we have an oversized reaction to? And for me, there was a lot of them.
Right.
I felt like I could interface with people in a skillful manner and keep my calm, even in frustrating situations with other people, even very heated conversations. But then these small things were making me more angry than, a person would that was insulting me.
Right.
And I just thought that was ridiculous. So, I started engaging in this practice called, background rest. So the idea is you and I are sitting here talking, and, I'm fully aware of the conversation. I can see you. I can hear you. I can notice the emotions in my body if an emotion arises. But I'm constantly splitting my attention between those things and maintaining rest in my body in the background. Mm-hmm. And what I've found is if I do that from the moment I wake up in the morning until I go to sleep at night, if I encounter something that results in emotional reactivity, like I said before, that reactivity isn't near as high as it otherwise would have been. It doesn't stay high very long, and it metabolizes so much faster. And that is meditation throughout the day.
Yeah.
That is a form of meditation on the move.
Which, the most impressive thing about trying to psychologically actually change yourself where you're at into somebody new is the amount of self-discipline that it takes. Like, you think it's hard to go work out for an hour each day? You're already having a hard time handling that? Well, when you start applying these practices like you're talking about, the amount of psychological energy that it takes to maintain that is absorbent. It's really impressive.
It is early on, though. Like the practice,
and then it becomes a habit.
It becomes a habit. Yeah. So these days, I don't have to so much consciously when I wake up say, "Oh, do background practice."
Right.
Instead, it just becomes part of who you are.
I've done applying grounding moments of okay, whoa, that's too. I feel it. I'm getting too elevated. Now I need to ground.
Yeah, and another way of thinking of this is the difference between a state versus a trait. So if you meditate, you're trying to put yourself in a different state, right?
Right.
And once you're done meditating, this is what was happening to me all the time in those first 15 years. I would get in a great state, but then get off the cushion and it's gone. If you practice over a long period of time, especially if you bring the practice into everyday life, then what ends up happening is instead of it just being a state, it becomes a more durable trait of who you are.
Yep. And that's the grind.
That's the grind.
To get it applied.
But it doesn't, it's amazing how it does take effort up front.
Yep.
But it's amazing how quickly it can become more of who you are as a person.
And it's amazing how freeing it is.
Yeah.
Because you can walk through life and not be like, oh, I would need to react to every situation. My little ego is in the way all the time. It's incredible how overrun our egos are. Right now.
And I'll give you an example that happened to me recently. I had a friend with me in my truck, and we were going to a store, and we had to make a U-turn at a light. We make this U-turn, and there's plenty of room for us to make this U-turn. The cars that are coming the other way are not going very fast. There's enough distance for us to make that U-turn. And so we make the U-turn, we pull into the parking lot of the store that we're going to, and I see a truck pull in behind me really fast. And then I go down a couple of lanes, start to find a parking spot, and I see him speed up. I can see him to my left speeding up and then making a right, and then he cuts us off before we could park with his truck.
Okay.
And he rolls down his window, and at this point, the person with me already has her hand on a handgun, because she could tell what's going on. So this is a high risk situation.
Right.
This could become something terrible really fast, right?
Right.
So, and, stupidly on that guy's part, he rolled down his window and his teenage son was in the, passenger seat. And so if gunfire occurred, there's a good chance his son would have been hit.
Right.
In this process, right? So I recognized how intense this could become. There was a time and place in my past life where I probably would not have reacted the way I did this day. But he rolls his window down, I roll mine down, and I immediately put my hand up and very calmly say, "Sir, I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I'm sorry." And he proceeded to tell me, I was in a car accident a few days ago, and what you did startled me. Right. But you could tell when I rolled the window down and I put my hand up and I said, "Sir, I'm sorry," you could tell it kind of deflated him.
Right.
He was anticipating a fight. He was anticipating an argument, and it wasn't there. And you could see him just kind of take a breath and calm down. And he calmly told me, what he said about being in the previous car accident.
Because you weren't like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
I didn't.
Up in his face.
You didn't feed the flames.
Yeah, I didn't feed the flames. And, I didn't do anything wrong. But I still said, "I'm sorry."
Right.
To deflate the situation. And it worked beautifully. It was a perfect example. And it was a great example for me. It reinforced everything that I'm trying to do. as a meditator, a breather, and a person who teaches self-defense, right?
So I think the work that you've done with kids is incredible, let me just say, because it's a place I never thought I would see myself as well. And like tutoring, experiencing, coaching kids was amazing, but it takes a serious commitment level. Like, again, you've got some perseverance and dedication as a person. Because that amount of patience, that amount of learning about individuals at such a young age really gives you, I believe, a psychological insight to human beings in general. Mm-hmm. How does that work into like what you do, coaching people when you're working with breathing techniques, that kind of stuff? How does that play in, do you think?
Well, as far as Krav Maga coaching, what I would say what the kids have taught me more than anything is that you have to approach everyone as individuals. So when I'm walking around the room, whether it's with kids or adults, I have to figure out what makes each person tick. Mm-hmm. So how do I reinforce this person? What type of reinforcement is going to work best for them? And also if I have to tell them, hey, you're not doing that correctly, I don't say that the same way to every person, right? I have to vary that. Because people are sensitive to different things. And so I would say it's made me better at understanding individuals as individuals and not teaching everyone the same way.
Instead of, I'm teaching my class, I'm doing it this way, and that's how it's going to work.
That's right.
I think that's an amazing leadership skill that is really important if we will find ourselves in survival situations, mm-hmm. because you can't, there's definitely the different, personality types. And mm-hmm. If you don't interact with people in the way that's going to make sense to them, especially in those high stress moments, mm-hmm. then things go really wrong. We kind of experienced this at prepper camp, when Hurricane Helene went down. There were so many chiefs.
Yeah.
Right?
Everyone wanted to be in charge.
Yes. And so much knowledge.
Yeah. So
many incredible people, but we were just like, wow. Everybody mm-hmm. could unravel really quickly because, who's going to take the head mm-hmm. lead? Who's going to take that spot? Mm-hmm. So, I think that is really key. And I've had two of my favorite mentors have told me exactly the same thing on that note. So mm-hmm. we're rolling with that one for sure. Yeah. The other one that I really wanted to tie in was the de-escalation. It's an interesting aspect in Krav compared to everything that I've trained before, because before it's just more about learning movements, motions, forms, that kind of stuff, right? And then being able to apply them in sparring situations, that's as close as we get to like, what would a street fight look like besides when I was doing MMA and whatnot. But Krav really brings that, but also really stresses that de-escalation that you were talking about mm-hmm. in that car incident, you mm-hmm. know? And, we've even been to the seminars and things like that. And I think the de-escalation element of things is not only beautiful with mm-hmm. Krav because you're learning some shit that would really hurt people, mm-hmm. but people could apply that in life and to a survival situation as a leader.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So can you talk to that a little bit? Just like what would be maybe some of the key elements that you would like people to know if they're in the middle of a scenario where you've got too many chiefs, not enough Indians, you're in the survival situation, how for managing that crowd basically mm-hmm. of people that just ended up together?
That's an interesting question. What comes to mind is sitting down and saying, well, you have 5 people. What are the strengths of each of those people, right? Yep. And then delegate what needs to be done based on the strengths of those people instead of everybody trying to do the same thing. Right. So Sarah, your strengths are, you got a list of them. So let's assign you to one of those things, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of everybody trying to take charge of everything. And I see this as well in de-escalation. Right? It's the same idea where if you have someone who is approaching you that is making you uncomfortable and you have to de-escalate that situation, you can't use the same technique on every person.
All right.
You have to be skillful at reading what's going on in that moment and whether you need to stay calm in your voice and never say calm down to somebody first and foremost. Right?
Right.
That never works, right?
And not me, especially.
But what you want to do more than anything in any of these situations is you want to model, think about co-regulation, right? So what happened with that guy when he rolled his window down? He wanted to fight. He was escalated. What he said to me, his first sentence to me was very angry, right?
Right.
But I calmed myself down and I apologized. And what ended up happening is that deflated that situation. But that's called co-regulation. It took me to stay calm to then calm him, right? So I love the idea that your nervous system enters the scenario before your words do.
Right.
Right.
Yep. With your energy, the outward projection of just what you're feeling inside.
That's right. Yeah. So it all comes down to you being able to manage your nervous system skillfully. And that's where the mindfulness and the breathing comes in, right? Right. So if somebody starts giving a shock and awe show, when it comes to their language, how much can I cuss in this?
Yeah, we're good. We're pretty good. My audience has heard me cussing for about a decade now. So somebody gets out of their car because they think that you parked in the spot that they wanted, and they're like, "You stupid bitch! You parked in my spot, right?" And they start getting really elevated. You could start to feel your nervous system. I'm offended because you just called me a bitch, and now I'm all and then you're like, "Oh, well, screw you, blah blah." You don't own this spot.
Stand your ground.
You don't own this spot, and it just keeps escalating and escalating, and then you end up in a stupid fist fight over a parking spot. Right. It really comes down to you recognizing in that moment that your nervous system is being elevated. Manage that first and then manage the other person through your language. It's like putting the mask on your face before you put it on the kids, right? You have to. That's the only way to do it. Because if you look at every scenario where people end up in mutual combat, it's all ego, and it's because neither of them regulated their nervous system properly. Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that because, and as that leader in that moment, just being able to calm and help everybody else stay focused could be your position altogether. Like what the key is to that whole scenario. So that's really good stuff. I'm always worried about leadership because everybody that's been listening to this show for, a decade now, they're the ones who have already been thinking about this. They're the ones who have already been preparing. So like when stuff does go down, when you have everybody else kind of running around going, I don't know how to evacuate the house. They're the ones who have already thought through the game plan of making that happen. Right. So that's why I believe like the leadership skills are so important to bring to an audience like that. Yeah. And one thing that comes to mind, it's just like if there's an emergency and you have to perform CPR on someone and you got all these strangers standing around, everyone's frozen, right? They have the freeze response, or run around with like a chicken with its head cut off, that type of thing, right? Who am I going to call? I don't know. I got my phone in my hand. Right. What they teach you in CPR classes is you point at someone in particular and you delegate. Hey, you get the AED. You point to another person. You say, you in the red shirt, you call 911 and you come over here and assist me with CPR. Right. So to me, it applies in any emergency situation that you just have to figure out how to delegate appropriately. But you have to be specific about it, right? You can't just hope that everybody's going to do their job. Right. They don't know what their job is. Right. Especially if they want to do every job. Yeah, that's the thing, right? And then you have too many people trying to do everything at once and it turns into chaos. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. Part of delegating the jobs is it helps disperse that energy, that nervous energy. If somebody has something to do, they're not freaking out in the crowd. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So they have that sense of focus. Like, okay, I've got a mission now.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
See, for me, it's like the little shit. I did so well last time, during Hurricane Helene. I was really proud of myself how we handled it. Then the bees came in though. The bees were very irritating. I'm not kidding. They were everywhere. Like,
that's amazing.
And I've been attacked really bad before. But then, I couldn't find the saws. We had just used the saws. I'd put them down for a minute. Well, Brock had put them away already. And that was like the last like little straw. And then I was like, darn it, I made it through everything like so well. Our family did so good. I was very impressed with my boys and, you know, my husband. It was a really sketch situation for a little bit. And I was like, we did so good. And then the saws. So I was like, it's those little things that just like crack you. And I, you know, so much work in on it. So, it is a discipline. It is a discipline to stick with it. I encourage everybody to do it because it's worth it. Because you're not an asshole anymore. And everything just runs so much smoother when you can feel the emotions coming before they happen and really be able to manage that and help people through their own problems then, in that case.
Yeah. And I think too that there's kind of an ethic around, breathing and meditation in particular, because so much of it came from Eastern philosophy, right? Although it was almost all Jewish people who brought it to the United States, believe it or not, which is really interesting.
I do believe it, because during prayer and meditation.
Well, this was back during the Vietnam War. The federal government had grants where they would allow university students to study abroad. And so that's where people ended up going to Southeast Asia. One of my mentors went to Japan, right? So Shinzen Young, Jack Kornfield, Joseph Goldstein, Sharon Salzberg, noticing a pattern here? Yeah. Those are the people who brought meditation to the United States. And, you know, one of the big ethics in those philosophies is that you are engaging in these practices not just for you. You're engaging in these practices to help other people, to be more skillful with other people, to be more useful and compassionate toward other people, right? And to serve other people. And so, that really changes everything.
It does. It absolutely does. You're not wrong. You have a class coming up. One of the coolest things from the class that I went to was about the heart, and being able to, like you were explaining how it's attached to your diaphragm. And for the breast cancer, you can go into that if you want, or you can just let people know.
I'd love to, yeah.
But, let's talk about your class a little bit and what that looks like, what people are going to get from it, what they're going to experience, because, it's really cool, guys. It's definitely worth
The first thing I'll mention is every time I promote, it's called Fundamentals of Breathing and Meditation course, right? And I use social media to promote it. Almost invariably, when I post it on social media, the first comment that someone makes is, I've been breathing my whole life.
I don't need to learn to breathe. Yeah.
Right? And then I had a meeting with someone who signed up for one of my previous courses, my most recent one, that is now over, and he signed into the first class. I saw him sign in, and then he left. So he didn't even stay for the first class. So I waited the 6 weeks until the class was over, and then I reached out to him because he paid for it. He didn't ask for his money back even.
Or anything.
So, you know, I felt an obligation to at least reach out to him and see what he would like to do. And within 5 minutes, he said the exact same thing. I'm 70 years old, and I've been breathing my whole life. And so what people don't understand is that we are the only mammals on the planet that I'm aware of that changes the way we breathe when we're about 5.5 years old. We're between day 1 and 5.5, we breathe like we're supposed to. We're functional breathers. And then we go to school. And what happens at school? We start sitting all day long. And most people at school, when they sit, they slouch in their chair. In fact, if you're in middle school and high school and you sit up straight, there are derogatory terms for you. There are consequences.
Oh, yeah, like the board, the straight board or whatever.
Gay. You're gay, right? That's all. That's the number one insult that they'll lodge against each other, right? Look, he's sitting gay, right?
This because you're like,
slouching is cool.
Yeah,
sitting straight up so that you can breathe properly and have a good back for the rest of your life. That's gay, right?
Nice.
So what ends up happening is they recondition their breathing in a way that becomes aberrant. And so 95% of the population breathes in a way that would be considered dysfunctional. And they don't even know it. And they do that from 5.5 until the day that they die. Mm-hmm. Right? And what I told that gentleman when he mentioned, that comment is he added to it that doesn't our body already know what to do? Isn't it breathing the way it's supposed to anyway? And the answer is this: your body breathes to keep you alive, not necessarily to thrive. You have to relearn how to breathe like you did when you were born until 5.5 years old in order to thrive.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, and look, there's plenty of studies at this point, really good studies indicating, the percentage of the population that breathes aberrantly, doesn't realize they're doing it. And eventually a lot of people experience symptoms from it that they would never attribute to their breathing. There was a study that indicated that as much as 60% of the ambulance rides, in major cities, they realize once they get to the hospital, they do all the testing. There's nothing wrong with the person's heart. They almost always think it's a heart attack. What they figure out when they dig deeper is it's a breathing pattern disorder that caused it. It wasn't a heart attack.
I can believe that.
It was a breathing pattern disorder that caused certain symptoms in the body that made them think that they were having a heart attack. Right?
Like super anxiety cases too. Everybody always thinks I'm having a heart attack, but you start breathing funky and
that's right.
Screws your body up.
Yeah. So my course focuses, this person also had a misunderstanding that, I was probably teaching, conscious connected breathing or rebirthing or, Stan Grof's type of breathing where you're purposely, hyperventilating for 45 minutes or so. And I'm certified in doing that. I've done it myself many times. I've had a rebirthing experience, which is an incredible experience.
Crazy.
But I actually hate the sensations involved in that type of breathing personally. Some people love it. It's kind of getting, high on your own supply type thing.
Oh, gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
Cause, it causes all kinds of weird tingling in the body, and, among other things. And there's also some languaging around it that is just wrong. That is a misunderstanding of how the breathing system works. Most instructors that teach that type of breathing, what they will tell you is that you're experiencing this rebirthing or you're having these visions, right? Like you're on a psychedelic
trip or something.
Because you're taking in so much oxygen. You're oxygenating your body so much.
Okay.
That's why you're having these symptoms. The opposite is true. What's actually happening is you're off-gassing too much CO2. CO2 has a bad name because of, environmentalists talking about climate change.
Right.
And so everybody thinks you're just supposed to get rid of CO2 in the body. When the reality is you're supposed to maintain a certain level of CO2 regardless of the activity that you're engaged in. So the level of CO2 that should be in your body when you are sitting doing nothing is the same level of CO2 that you should have in your body when you were doing burpees. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's devices, that you can buy. Unfortunately, they're very expensive. They're about $3,000. And it's a pocket device. You can put it in your pocket and it's got a cannula that goes up in your nose and it measures your CO2 and it's a biofeedback device. So what it does is it teaches you how much CO2 is in your body as you are engaged in a variety of activities. And your goal is to learn to manage your breathing during various activities to maintain that same level of CO2 across the board, right? And so what's actually happening during those superventilation or hyperventilation practices that they do for 30 minutes to an hour is, you're lowering CO2 so much that you get vasoconstriction. Your blood vessels constrict. When there's vasoconstriction, that means less blood flow.
Right.
Right? Yep. And so what ends up happening is people's fingers get tingly. And that's because you have less blood flow in your fingers going on when you're super, ventilating like that. They say superventilation because hyperventilation has a bad connotation, right?
Yeah,
but it's
the name.
It's the same thing. You're hyperventilating on purpose, right? And in fact, some people can do it so heavily that what happens is they get something called tetany, And what that is, some people call it lobster claws, where you get cramps in your arms and it curls your wrist and your fingers like this, and you end up in this position, right? It's part of it. It's super weird.
Crazy.
I've experienced it. It's not pleasant. It doesn't last very long. If you just normalize your breathing, it goes away within a few seconds. But crazy. What people don't understand is that when you off gas so much CO2, you get that vasoconstriction. And another thing that happens is hemoglobin, which is you could think of hemoglobin like it's the Uber driver of oxygen to the tissues of the body. And so if you're working out, for example, you're working your legs, you need oxygen to be entering the muscles of the legs. But if you're over breathing and you think about it like you're over breathing for the metabolic demands of the activity that you're engaged in. What's going to happen in addition to that vasoconstriction is that hemoglobin, that Uber driver, is going to hang on to the oxygen molecule. They're going to lock the doors to the car. So what's going to happen is that oxygen is just flowing through your blood supply without being released into the tissues of the body. And so they can show this through a functional MRI scan that if you and I sat here now and we overbreathe, the average person breathes about 12 to 15 times a minute. If you just double that to 30 breaths a minute, in 30 seconds, you reduce blood supply to the brain by 40 to 60%.
Crazy.
And so if you're reducing blood supply, you're also reducing oxygen. All right. And the same thing is happening to your heart. And so this is especially important for athletes, anybody engaged in any sort of athletic endeavor, but in particular runners, people who are engaging in
runners in the
long distance running, right? Because what happens is, I had a client that he is the cardiologist for all the professional sports teams in Houston. And about 15 years ago, I had dinner with him. I was just really curious what it was like to work with that level of athlete, right? And somewhere along the way, for whatever reason, I brought up to him, why in the world do you see these marathon runners cross the finish line and drop dead, right?
Right.
His response was just the regular canned response of, well, it's a dose dependent issue. The more you engage in long distance running, over the course of your life, the greater likelihood you have a heart attack.
It's crazy.
Right?
Yeah. And it's supposed to be like the healthy activity.
But it's supposed to be a healthy activity. And so, but he didn't say anything about breathing. That was 15 years ago. Fast forward to the year 2025, a PhD in exercise physiology named George Dallam wrote a paper. It's published. And in that paper, he says, no, it has nothing to do with the activity that you're engaged in. What it has to do with is that these runners haven't been taught how to breathe properly. They have high sensitivity to CO2, so they're breathing too much for the metabolic demands of the activity that they're engaged in. So while they're running, they're breathing so much that they're constricting their blood vessels, and they're reducing oxygen supply to the brain and the heart. And just a 5% reduction in oxygen to the heart creates scar tissue on the heart. And what ends up happening is the electrical signal that makes the heart pump hits that scar tissue, goes in a circle around the scar tissue, and causes a heart attack.
Until there's too much. Yeah. That's crazy.
Right? So to me, that underscores yet again the importance of understanding.
But even like applying that to like anxiety type situations too, when you start over breathing like that, then you've got less blood flow to your brain, you've got less brain power to be involved in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
so if you have an anxiety disorder, there's a much greater likelihood that you are overbreathing on a regular. You're probably a chronic overbreather. Right? I just read in a breathing textbook this week, in fact, a couple of days ago. Most people will tell you it's about 10% of the population that are chronic overbreathers. This textbook has updated it to say it's about 50% of the population. And so they're doing that all day, not necessarily because they have an anxiety disorder, but because they're in their head. They're in what is called the default mode network, where they are ruminating on the past, which causes depression.
Looking at social media.
Yeah.
Right.
They're also future tripping, right? Thinking about the future. Yep. 90% of which doesn't come true. Right. But what people don't realize is that type of thinking about the past, thinking about the future, has a direct impact on your nervous system.
Yeah.
It makes your heart rate go up. It makes your breathing rate go up, and it makes your CO2 levels go down. And so you're getting less oxygen to the heart and to the brain. There's a researcher named Peter Litchfield. He's in his 80s now. And he's created those devices that you can measure. They're called capnographers. And, I took a class with him one time, and what he would do is hook a person up to the capnographer, and you can see real time on a screen what's happening to this person's CO2 levels. One person had trauma from a previous car accident, right? And so he had her turn away from the screen so she couldn't see the screen, and he starts coaching her through a visualization. And it starts nice and light, just so you can get a baseline. Hey, you're sitting in the car in your driveway, right? You turn the car on. You're perfectly safe. You put it in reverse. You start to back out of your driveway, right? You turn down your street, and you get to the point where you had this car accident, right? And you start to see her CO2 levels drop, right? You can see it real time. This is all in her head. It's all imaginary, right? Nothing's happening. In real life, it's all in her head, and it's having a direct impact on the way she's breathing, and it's dropping her CO2 levels to a level that is not healthy if you maintain those levels.
I can believe that. I mean, we live through scenarios, right, in our heads all the time about shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and
that's right.
Crazy.
Yeah. So when we find ourselves doing that, one practice that I do for myself is, I try to notice that as quickly as possible. A thought that pops up, whether it's rumination or future tripping, right? Mm-hmm. And look, sometimes if you're engaged in rumination, maybe 1% of the time or less, there's actual insight in that rumination. But almost,
I need to re-examine this.
Or you get a solution all of a sudden to something that you've thought about for 10 years. But the vast majority of the time, all it is causing you to suffer. In that moment for no good reason.
Relive moments that you can't change it.
And the same with future tripping, right? So one mindfulness practice that I found to be quite useful is, first and foremost, trying not to get wrapped up in that rumination, for a long period of time. Try to recognize it as early as possible, and then label it, right? So a thought comes up, and I realize it's rumination. So I label it in my head or out loud, rumination. Okay. Which means that I'm not going to pay attention to that. And I bring my attention back to something in the body. First and foremost, it's my breathing, because I know that the rumination is going to have a direct impact on my breathing. And the breathing is going to drive, the nervous system response of a heightened heart rate, right? If you and I sat here and doubled our breathing pattern, just like I mentioned before, not only is it going to lower blood flow and oxygen to the brain by 40 to 60% within 30 seconds, but it's also going to increase your heart rate. And it's incredible. I've done this. I've got graphs of me doing this, and in 15 seconds or so, doubling your breathing rate can increase your heart rate by 30 to 50 points.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
So you label it rumination, and then bring attention to the bottom of the rib cage. Slow your breathing down. Make sure you're breathing through your nose rather than your mouth, and then just stay present here and now in the present moment on whatever it is that is going on. Right? And I've found that to be hugely helpful to not just get rid of the rumination in the moment, but for it to happen less over the course of time.
Because you're identifying it.
Yeah. Well, we identify, because you're identifying, that it's happening in that moment. What ends up what most people do that don't practice that particular skill that I just mentioned is they identify with the rumination. Right.
Relive it again and again. Do you think that's why people are having such problems with high blood pressure issues?
Yeah. I think it plays a role for a lot of people.
Sounds like a lot of patterns I know of.
Yeah. In addition to, lots of caffeine, lots of nicotine that people are consuming. There's all kinds of things that we're doing that are contributing to something like high blood pressure. But for sure, for the vast majority of the population that don't have mindfulness skills and breathing skills, it's what's going on between their ears.
Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know. I think there's some major recalculating of society to do on that note as far as our technology goes, and I think it's a bad experiment. But
yeah, you know what though? It's just like food, and the big food industry and all the ways that they're trying to hack our natural systems. We can't wait for the world to change.
Yeah.
Right? Those cell phones aren't going away. These smartphones aren't going away.
Yeah, so we have to adapt.
Everywhere you go, look, you go into a quick stop. What do you see? There's nothing but terrible things in there. Everything in there will kill you. Right?
That's not a lie. Yeah.
Even the water, right? Literally, there's this really cool app where you can scan products and it'll tell you what's in those products, right? That you don't want to put in your body. And you would be shocked at how many of the waters that you purchase when you scan them, they have things in there that aren't on the label, anti-caking agents, all kinds of things that affect the heart. Out of like 10 brands of water on the shelf at the Quick Stop, maybe 2 of them are actually just water.
Just water.
Yeah. There's an app called Yuka. YUKA that I use all the time, and one called Bobby Approved that I scan everything. I love it because
you're like, what's in there? Well, bread is the one that's been freaking me out because I have like the gluten sensitivity or whatever, but it's not really. It's just because all the crap they put in there. So now I've been trying to do like the bakery bread, like only getting it from there. And see if that like makes a difference.
Yeah. So we can't.
I like sandwiches.
Yeah, me too. We can't wait for the world to change.
Yeah.
We have to take responsibility for ourselves. Quit blaming it on big corporations.
Fair.
Right? We just have to. We have to take responsibility.
That's a great point. There's because there's no one doing it now. There's no unravel. You can sit and say, "Boy, I wish I coulda, shoulda, woulda."
Well, there's nothing worse for an individual than to put it on big corporations or whatever they want to put it on, right? Because that takes their agency away from them.
Right.
Take control. You have agency, so take control and do it, right? Don't wait for the world to change.
See, I told you. That's why I was like, it's incredible the amount of mental dedication that you have. It's really cool. Where are we at? What time are we at? Oh, we're way past an hour. Chin.
Already.
Wait. Well, no, we probably started a little late. Yeah, no, it's all your fault, Chin. Come on, man.
I'll take ownership of it.
So, okay, so I've got, this is just for the crowd who's like, oh, this meditation and breathing stuff sounds hippie, and, I'm backwoods country person, I don't want to deal with that hippie stuff, and, how would you address that type of reaction? Because I would tell you a lot of people that read I would think that's a common stereotype. Sure. Right?
Well, that's what the person that I mentioned earlier that joined the first class and left. What he said, I went to Woodstock and they were doing breathing and meditation there, and I figured that's what you were doing. It's like, look, man, I am an anti-woo-woo person. Right. I am. There's no woo-woo in what I teach. Yeah. Right. My classes focus on, first and foremost, teaching people functional breathing. How should a human being be breathing? Right? So we're going to do an assessment. It's called the Breathing IQ. Dr. Belisa Vranich, not only designed this particular test, but she's also studied it and she's, published papers on it. So
We all failed the test off the bat.
The vast majority of the population.
Everybody failed.
I failed the test the first time I did it. The vast majority of the population fails it. Probably 99% of the people that I do the test on fail it. I've never tested someone at their first exposure and they pass it.
With flying colors, yeah.
Yeah, with flying colors. I mean, it does grade you from A to F.
Right.
I've seen people get a C for their first test, but I've never seen someone get an A for their first test. So we assess breathing first and foremost. And that particular test looks at location of breathing and also the flexibility of the rib cage. And after we do that test, the focus is on getting people to become more aware of their breathing throughout the day, breathing at the bottom of the rib cage. It is not belly breathing. I can't stand it when people say belly breathing. It is not belly breathing. It is using the bottom of the ribs and expanding the bottoms of the ribs on the inhale and allowing the rib cage to just fall in. Your inhale is active. Your exhale is passive, right? Meaning that it requires musculature to make the inhale to happen, and it requires relaxation of that musculature for the exhale to happen, right? So our first goal is to teach people to be aware of where they're breathing throughout the day. If they're breathing high in the chest, using their subclavicular muscles right under the collarbone or their neck and shoulder muscles. And instead learn to breathe at the bottom of the ribs and not just breathe forward. If you belly breathe, you're just breathing forward.
Right.
A functional breath is a 360-degree breath, right? It's called circumferential breathing around the whole body. So your rib cage goes forward, it goes out the sides, and you should also be breathing into your back, right? After we do that, then we give practices to strengthen the breathing muscles. There's a variety of ways that we do that. And this is super important for people who are engaged in physical exercise, whether you are a competitor or just working out to stay fit. One of the most interesting, and you can look this up on YouTube. There are academic speeches that people give on this. It's called the metabo reflex. And everyone is experienced working out and your arms and your legs start to feel heavy, right?
Yep.
And what people attribute that to is their hard work. They're like, oh, I'm awesome.
I'm dead.
I'm killing it.
Yeah.
I'm killing it.
I can't even open my Gatorade.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It has nothing to do with that. What's actually happening is because their breathing muscles are weak. And the reason their breathing muscles weaken is because the vast majority of the population after the age of 5.5 start to pull their belly in. They tighten their core all day long. And if you tighten your belly, you're also tightening the muscles around the rib cage.
Right.
So your rib cage can no longer do its job to allow the lungs to inflate properly. So what ends up happening is people start breathing up and down. Vertical breathing, right? And so, what that does when you clamp down all the time is your diaphragm becomes weak and the breathing muscles around the rib cage weaken. And it's because you have weak muscles that your arms and legs start to feel heavy because during exercise, the metabo reflex will kick in when those muscles get tired. Because your body literally starts to think that you're going to die. So what your body naturally does, it's a reflex. It's also called, it's called the metabo reflex. It's also called blood stealing. And it's because when those muscles get tired, your body automatically shunts off blood by constricting the blood vessels to your legs and your arms so that you get more blood supply to the muscles of breathing that are getting tired because they're weak.
Gotcha.
And so one of the first things that changes for people who work out on a regular basis, when they strengthen their breathing muscles, that metabo reflex either kicks in much later or it doesn't kick in at all. And so in the literature, they call it rate of perceived exertion, RPE. And it's a subjective measure of how hard your exercise feels. So let's say you've never done breathing practice. You get a F on the BIC, right? And I ask you to do 100 burpees. Okay. And then when you're done with the burpees, I say, how hard was that? What was your rate of perceived exertion? And you rate it on a scale from 1 to 10. 1, it was easy. 10, it was the worst thing in the world. And you say, oh, that was definitely a 10. I felt like I was going to die. Right? And then you do 3 months of training of strengthening your breathing muscles. And then you do those 100 burpees again. And by the way, during that 3 months, you also learn functional breathing patterns. When you do that 100 burpees for the second time, and I ask you what your perceived exertion was, maybe now it's a 6 or a 7.
Gotcha.
Same output. You did it in the same amount of time, but it felt completely different because that metabo reflex didn't have to kick in.
Yeah. So all of our weekend warriors that are out there doing the big weekend projects.
Yeah.
More stamina, more endurance, more everything for any kind of survival situation, hiking situations, all that.
Yep.
Definitely got to check it out, guys. Give the websites, where do they go to find you?
Yep. Best way to find me is nervousapes.com.
You get hooked up with the class there?
Yep. They can hook up the class there, and I also promote on Facebook and Instagram under the same name.
And then I'll have a link to Nervous Apes from my blog post as well, guys, so you can check it out there. And come check it out. I was blown away. I said the same thing. I don't need to learn how to breathe. This is dumb. And we went, and it wasn't dumb. It was actually really, really interesting. And I was like, damn it. All right, maybe I need to learn to breathe better.
Let me, if you don't mind, let me tell you one thing that just happened recently. I did the class. It was a 3-hour class with a group of Krav Maga people in Houston. And I did an assessment with them, at the beginning of the class where I asked them to, engage in high knees. So it's just running in place, right? And I didn't tell them what I was looking at. I just told them, do high knees as fast as you can. And within 16 seconds, over 50% of the class was breathing through their mouth, right? Already. Yep. 15 seconds, already breathing through their mouth. And, we did the class at the 3-hour class. At the end of the class, we redid it. And, at 1 minute, nobody was breathing through their mouth.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
They were all nasal breathers after just 3 hours of work, and they were more efficient in their breathing. And I just cut the assessment off at 1 minute because it was so much greater than the 16 seconds that they started with. There was no reason. It was just to demonstrate to them what they had just learned, right? And how powerful that was.
Yeah. It's true. And I never even ever fathomed thinking about that, during the workout and whatnot. And I've been at it for a long time, so it's pretty impressive. Alrighty. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Unless you got more, you got a question, Chin? What's been burning on your brain as you sit over there?
Oh, no, I'm just trying to breathe over here.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was like, everybody in the audience is now thinking about how they're breathing at this moment.
I was like, was I breathing my nose, my mouth open?
Yeah. Right? Yep.
Keep that mouth closed, Chin. Breathe through the nose.
Yep. That's what I have to listen to at class all day.
Yeah, I'm screaming at them all the time.
I'm sure it's just at class people to tell you keep your mouth closed.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. It's just there. Yep. Alrighty, guys. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Check out nervousapes.com. Coach Asher, awesome dude. Get signed up to the breathing program. It's worth it. Wouldn't lead you astray. But I thought it was pretty darn cool and definitely worth bringing the message. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out as always. And, Prepper Camp coming end of, August.
Nope.
August. Middle of August. Yes. I always say end. Yeah. 14th, 15th, 16th, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. August 14th, 15th. We're at, the Tyron, International Equestrian Center this year. We got more space for more people. They got hotels, guys. You don't have to be camping out, floating in your tents. But it's still on the lake. It's still a beautiful place. Shuttles. Amber will be there. Barky in the background.
Less twisty mountain roads to get there.
Right. Yep. Easier shot. So, no excuses. Get out there. Come see us at Prepper Camp this year. And, the audio drama season 5 is starting while subscribers are getting the first episode this week. So, that'll drop on Thursday. And then non-subscribers season 5 is starting on the 23rd. It's all ready to go. It is sounding epic. Coach Asher is also, playing Bennett now this year. So that's fun. We had to do a little switch up there. So that's all coming out. And then we should have a podcast, Changing Earth podcast beginning of May. And we'll go over Changing Earth news in May. I didn't want to do it today because I didn't want to waste, not waste time, but I didn't want to take time away from this interview because I thought so much great info to bring. So, alrighty. Thanks, Chen. Thanks very much, Coach, for being here. Appreciate it.
It was fun.
All right. Until next time, remember, dream,
survive,
thrive.
Thank you for listening to the Changing Earth podcast. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment or a review. Help make the Changing Earth world go around by purchasing the Changing Earth novel series at Amazon.com or get your signed copies at ChangingEarthSeries.com. Get your Changing Earth gear and become a paid subscriber for extra goodies at ChangingEarthSeries.com.